Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I have a bunch of updates to share about Donald Trump's coup clown. So first, former Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne had raised a few eyebrows, to say the least. He recently threatened law enforcement over the prosecution of Tina Peters. You guys will recall, I've talked about her many times. She is the former Colorado County clerk, and she helped to facilitate the breach of voting equipment in her county. So she is on trial this week. And Burns made these threats numerous times. He was on a Twitter Spaces, and this was like a 3-hour period of time he was in this Twitter space. And it was called the Cyber Crisis Saving Tina Peters. So at one point, Burns said, quote, "If you have any brains at all, which I'm not sure they do, they should be throwing in the towel and just surrendering and dropping this case against Tina, because those who don't are going to end up facing a piano wire and a blowtorch before this is over if I have anything to do with it. So I know that's probably another felony, but fuck it. Threatening them like that, but there we are." And then he later claimed that he had been hacking into Venezuela's government for 2 years. Not sure if that's real, but that would be another crime. And Burns said, quote, "I don't care how many felonies I've committed, and I don't care that I'm committing felonies by threatening you. You folks do your job, or when this is over, the folks who are part of this are going to be facing, piano wire and blowtorches before this is over. So you start doing your job and stop worrying about me." Something tells me they can multitask. I think they can do their job and worry about Byrne. But anyway, the following day, Byrne backpedaled. He was like, beep, beep, I'm backing it up. must have had like a come to Jesus moment, or somebody got to him and talked some sense to him, because then he claimed, "Oh, I was just speaking metaphorically." And he said, quote, "There's been no one more committed to peaceful resolution of this than I." So I'm really looking forward to this guy getting his due, meaning not physical consequences, I mean legal consequences, because outside of a defamation lawsuit that was filed by a Dominion Voting Systems employee or former employee, he's been able to skate. He has dodged any and all accountability for trying to help Trump overturn the 2020 election. So let's hope the authorities charge him. Let's hope they're looking into this, and yeah, he gets locked up. I will definitely keep an eye on it. I'll let you know. But speaking of defamation lawsuits, the Gateway Pundit just had their bogus bankruptcy case tossed by the judge. So I've mentioned before, this is the right-wing conspiracy site that was founded by a man named Jim Hoft and his brother. They're being sued for defamation by various people, two of whom are Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the Georgia election workers. So to avoid litigation, Hoft filed for bankruptcy. But as I've also shared with all of you, the company had more than enough cash. In fact, the judge said that Gateway Pundit's parent company has assets that total more than, quote, 22 times greater than its liabilities. So they're not going bankrupt. And in her final ruling, Judge Mindy Mora wrote that the Gateway Pundit, quote, "remains both balance sheet and cash flow solvent. There is no present financial distress, no looming foreclosure sale, no prospect of a market crash. There is only the state court litigation in which TGP, the Gateway Pundit, must defend itself. That's not a basis for bankruptcy relief. It's the justice system in operation." So what she's saying is, basically up until now, they've been able to use their insurance company. Their policy covers lawsuits, defamation, things like that. So their insurance company's been footing the bill for all of this litigation so far. Well, that's coming to an end. That's running out. So they're freaking out that now they're going to have to start digging into their own pockets to cover this litigation. So anyway, she found that the company didn't file this bankruptcy, quote unquote, in good faith. And so she dismissed it. So Freeman and Moss, also that former Dominion System executive, Eric Coomer, they are now free to pursue their defamation cases against Hoft and the Gateway Pundit. So that's good. I will keep you posted on that. And then Hoft was also hit with more bad news in this judgment because the judge mentioned that the company may have been operating without a proper Florida business license. So Hoft could end up owing even more money in back taxes. I will definitely let you know about that. Next up is news about my lumpy pillow man, Mike Lindell. I mentioned recently he was served with an eviction notice for his company. He was renting a warehouse in Shakopee, I think is how you pronounce it, Shakopee. Anyway, they were about to evict him. They said he owed over $500,000. He hadn't paid. This is the second similar, situation like this. Well, Lindell has apparently come to an agreement with the landlord. He was able to bring the rent current. They said he also paid all of his costs, the attorney's fees, interest owed. Not sure how he pulled that off, but looks like he's going to be there. So that's that. Then Lindell made news again recently because he took credit for the first-class flight that Rudy Giuliani took to the Republican National Convention. So, sorry guys, I have a hair in my eye. So I mentioned recently that America's defendant, Rudy Giuliani, he was in some hot water because his creditors went to the judge and said, hey, this guy owes us all this money, and yet he flew along with his girlfriend and his assistant to Wisconsin to attend the Republican National Convention. Lindell came forward and said, no, my company, Frank's Speech, covered the cost because you might also recall they just hired Giuliani to host a show on their site. So that explains that in the flights. But the bankruptcy judge who's presiding over Giuliani's case is just livid with him because Giuliani, as I've shared with you guys, he has refused to provide any evidence of his financial state. He has just been bobbing and weaving and ducking any accountability. And as I mentioned recently, the judge said, I'm inclined to dismiss the bankruptcy because it's not going anywhere. He's not giving us anything. Nothing's happening. So I'm inclined to just dismiss it and let these people go after you. But now the judge said, no, I'm rethinking it because again, it's not going anywhere and you owe bills. You have to pay some bills before I can dismiss this case. So in a court filing, the judge had written that, quote, what little we know about the debtor's financial situation, the debtor being Giuliani, makes his stance here more troubling. Even assuming that the debtor does not have the funds on hand to immediately pay these bankruptcy expenses, he certainly has considerable assets upon which he can draw to pay such expenses. So the judge went on to say that I may need to hold an evidentiary hearing. I may need to put Giuliani under oath. So the judge said, okay, I want to hear from Giuliani and his creditors by noon today. This was yesterday. He said by noon today, July 31st, want to know how we're going to move forward, what your ideas are. Well, there was a letter submitted to the court today saying that Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, at least, have agreed to settlement terms with Giuliani. So as you all know, he owes them $148 million because he admitted that he defamed them by lying and saying that they rigged the 2020 election. But the $148 million was kind of a pipe dream. I mean, Giuliani does not have that kind of money. He is up to his vodka-soaked eyeballs in debt. And at his age, there's no way he's going to make that kind of cash before he croaks, right? So Moss and Freeman have agreed we will accept whatever equity he has in his New York and Florida properties. Now, I don't know what he owes on those properties, but they're each valued in the millions of dollars, the one in New York even more so. So Giuliani has agreed now he's going to list both properties. He previously only had the New York property on the market. That's been sitting forever. I think it's been like a year or close to it. No, that we know of, no bites. So he's going to sell both properties. Whatever sells first, he's going to give them the cash, and then he'll sell the other one. But they reserve the right to review all offers. So finally, some justice. And this wasn't the only judge that Giuliani pissed off this week. In a court filing for the Arizona fake electors case, which Giuliani is charged in that case as well, his attorney, meaning Giuliani's attorney, it's a man named Mark Lee Williams, he repeatedly likened Giuliani to George Washington. I'm not joking. The attorney kept making this comparison over several pages in his filing because of the way Giuliani handled the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Now, it seemed to really anger the judge because in his response, he actually cited the rules of professional responsibility. And he told Giuliani's attorney, quote, "Going forward, the court expects all parties to limit their filings and arguments to cognizable claims that are supported by relevant facts and law." And the judge said Williams' statements were, quote, "irrelevant characterizations," and, quote, "not germane to the issues before the court." So this attorney, it seems like the guy's got some issues. He's a problem child because law and crime news outlets said that they went and they searched for Williams. They looked under the Arizona Attorney's Directory. What they found was that he had recently been suspended for 60 days because of the way he cross-examined an alleged sexual assault victim and her mother. So this guy just is, not a good person. Let's just leave it at that. So he had recently had his license reinstated in February. This just went down. I mean, I guess Giuliani, it's like slim pickings for him. He doesn't have much to choose from considering his financial situation, considering that he stiffed his last attorneys. So there you go. Last but not least, I have a quick update about Trump's final chief of staff, his co-defendant, Mark Meadows. Based on the Supreme Court's BS ruling that Trump is immune from prosecution and all presidents for all official acts, Meadows has now asked the Supreme Court to move his Georgia RICO case to federal court. So here's how he's doing this or why he's doing this. Meadows is hoping that if they move it to federal court, it will allow him to use that immunity ruling to get his charges tossed. Because as you all know, the charges against him are from Georgia, from the state of Georgia. So that prevents him from using that federal immunity ruling as protection. All of the lower courts, all of the appeals courts, they've all ruled against him in moving the case to a federal court. So we'll see. I mean, as we all know now, the Supreme Court is completely corrupt. So we'll see what they decide. Anyway, that's where things stand right now, guys. I will let you know when I hear more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.